Wouldn't it be great if you could attract anything you want easily and effortlessly? Wouldn't it be great if you could know how to make the best decisions all the time? And wouldn't it be great if you could create a life that you actually want to live, one that makes you really excited? Well, the good news is I believe, and my clients have found that it can be fun and easy. And the secret is learning to live in alignment with your human design. Today, I am excited to launch my podcast, New Paradigm Transitions Podcast, and we're going to be interviewing Cristy Nix, a human design specialist and intuitive business coach, about her personal transformation story, what her transition or what her transformation was, and then the product and service that she offers to share with others in transition. Before we get into that, just a quick kind of transition into what this is and why. So I started the New Paradigm Transitions podcast, or my intention has been to start the New Paradigm Transitions podcast for several years. I got this in a download and was given a lot of clear instruction to do a weekly podcast where I interview others like myself who have a personal transformation story and now have a product or service to share with others in transition. And the reason for that is because I have a big vision. It's what I call the Know Yourself Revolution. The vision is by 2024, 5 million people living in alignment with their design. Now, that doesn't mean that we've got 5 million people that are necessarily rabid human design fans. What we mean is 5 million people literally living in alignment with their design and listening to their inner guidance system, not necessarily in terms of human design speak, but tuning into their own bodies, tuning into their own intuition, letting go of their external constraints about being told what to do and what to think and how to feel by the media, by society, by whatever the control mechanisms that are a part of their life or your life. My vision is that we will be able to live truly in alignment to be and do what we're truly here to be and do. I know as a human design specialist myself that we are all designed, we're perfectly designed to be and do exactly what we're here to be and do because we have the design for it. I can prove it in your chart, and I'm excited to give you that good news today that there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect the way you are. And just a quick thing about me, why I'm saying this, why I'm doing the personal transformation stories on the podcast is that 5 years ago, I went through a lot of personal transition, divorce after 15 years, downsizing, layoff, health crisis, all at once, wanted to check out, found human design, or it found me. And I realized that I'm not broken. I'm perfect the way I am. And I'm perfectly designed to be and do what I am here to be and do. And so are you. That's the good news. As I applied my professional expertise of change management, organizational change management, to personal change management, all the personal changes in my life, what I found was there was a big gap. The gap was about energy and frequency. I had never heard those terms in my corporate career. And I've worked with some really top people in the UK, for the UK government, for the US government, for the state of California, for big companies like Deloitte, Warner Brothers, Dell, big utilities. I mean, I've worked for a lot of big organizations with really smart people, but nobody ever talked to me about frequency and energy. So it sort of sounded woo-woo to me at first, and I was put off. But as I applied I tried to apply the change management principles that I have been sharing with my corporate clients for so many years on my personal change, I realized that frequency and energy is absolutely the core piece that helps tie everything together, and it helps us to make transitions easier. It helps us to create intentionally. It helps us to choose what we're affected by. And so through human design, I've found those answers for myself, and I now intentionally create the life that I want. And so in the New Paradigm Transitions podcast is my intention to feature other experts like Cristy today, who are going to share their story about personal transformation, how it led them to a product or service that can now help others in transition to make change easier, because I'm here to connect, motivate, and inspire others to maximize their potential. That's my design, and that's my vision. And if you are here today, then I believe you are part of the Know Yourself Revolution. So just by being here, just by raising your own frequency, just by learning about your own self, practicing knowing yourself, loving yourself, and self-care, you're going to get into alignment, live in alignment, and leading by example, you will positively impact all the folks that you come in contact with. And together we can positively impact 5 million people by 2025. Just imagine what a beautiful world that would be. So if you have a chart handy, it may come in handy. We probably won't get into a lot of detail about human design today, but there will be some reference points that I will bring up as we interview Cristy. So if you don't have a chart, freehumandesignchart.com is a great place to get one. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into intuition and your human design and talk to Cristy about her story. So Cristy, please tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get into your story.
Okay, a little bit about me. Okay, so I have open-head ajna, so I'm an emotionally defined manifesting generator. I'm a 3-5 profile in human design, which basically means that I can go off on tangents. Open-head ajna, I tend to go side straight, depending on what comes in, because I channel a lot of information. Being a manifesting generator, we are designed to move fast, talk fast, skip steps, and sometimes come back and course correct. Being emotionally defined, that has changed how I'm majority individual energy, which means that I have to do everything on my own. I have to do it my way. And it's really hard to take it to the collective when I don't start with myself. So as a manifesting generator, I have done a lot of things. I am a serial entrepreneur. Back in the early 2000s, I was working for corporate America, working for IBM, doing coordinating large scale events and for the corporate world, basically. And it just about killed me, put me in the hospital twice. So it was kind of a sign to go off on my own and do my own thing. And in that, I have done web design, I have a coding degree background, and I've done interior design. I also have a marketing and fashion design degree background. So I have done a lot of things. One thing about being a 3-5, I have a lot of hats, as well as being a manifesting generator. So I can do a little bit of everything, is what it feels like. But what really struck me is that as I got into, especially my jewelry design, that's the longest held company that I've had. I sold off the other ones. So my jewelry design started about 20 years ago. And my mother-in-law, I'm actually at her house this week. My daughter's in gymnastics camp. She took me to a jewelry show, and I was walking through and at the time I hadn't started jewelry designing yet. And I was walking through all of the aisles. There's like so many people and everything, but I noticed how different stones would light up. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And they're certain ones, not all of them, right? And so it started me on my journey of figuring out how I worked intuitively, how this information was coming to me. They would name themselves. I would get pictures in my head of designs. It was great. It would wake me up at 3:30 in the morning and give me pictures of things to make. And I'm like, what the hell? And so it was really figuring out, oh my gosh, this is not coming from me. This is actually coming from my connection to spirit. And so it backed me into basically me going down the ultimate rabbit hole of figuring out how intuitively I was designed. And escalated into doing fine art shows, and eventually into doing metaphysical shows where I was selling my jewelry work. And I would have people ask me to read the stones because I had a little jar of gemstones. I love rocks. And I think that's something else Grace and I have in common.
Yes.
And I would have like a bowl of stones on my display, right? And people would come over and they play with them. And I'm like, oh, dude, now I got to watch them. And they're like, hey, and one guy came and he picked out 5 stones and put it down. And he goes, what do these mean? And I was like, okay, this means this and this means this. I went through and read them. And he goes, thank you. That's exactly what I needed to hear today. And I'm like, okay. So I naturally started stepping into doing intuitive work and like reading for people. And I read for people for over 15 years. And it was kind of like, I got to the point though, right before COVID, I was getting kind of burned out because people were coming to me and they didn't want to learn how they were wired. They didn't want to take responsibility and really own that structure, infrastructure, and intuitive ability. They wanted me to tell them what to do. And that's not my thing. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. And I stopped reading for people. And one night I was up with my daughter, and she was sick with the flu. She's 2 at the time. And I was thinking, you know what? 3:30 in the morning, I've got a full day tomorrow of work. And wouldn't it be awesome if I could just do intuitive work every day and have my own schedule and not have to go in anywhere or be responsible for anything else? And that's when I had people start asking me, well, you've had this business and this business and this business. Can you explain to me how I can do that too? And so that's when I started to, at the same time, around that same time, get into human design um, with Karen Curry Parker. And I noticed that there were things in my chart that totally supported me being an entrepreneur, using my intuition and how that would show up in my chart. And at the time, I was totally obsessed with myself. I always want to know, right, how I work and what I'm doing first, right? So that's where I started. And it just would go through, and I loved how human design would just kind of prove the point that I am meant to be an entrepreneur. I'm meant to be doing this kind of work. I'm here to help guide and assist others to become more basically self-aware, to the point where they can run their business from their intuitive self, and while being connected to spirit. And I've used human design basically as the framework for that. And one huge turning point for me was that I wanted, with my intuitive business, right? I wanted to be big as soon as possible, total manifesting general attitude. And, I want to fast forward. And so I ended up hiring this insanely.
Hold on. Good job.
Right.
And if you're not speaking, if you could just mute yourself, please.
Oh.
Thanks.
Right, train of thought back. But anyway, so I decided that I really wanted my business to be huge, and I wanted to hit the ground running, and I wanted to do it right now. And so I hired this really expensive business coach that someone had recommended to me. And going into it, I kept having little red flags pop up saying, this might not be the best plan. And I kept going, no, I want to be big. I'm going to, this is just a fear. I'm just pushing that aside. I'm going to keep doing it. And then in conversation, I think it was our second meeting, I was telling her that I felt off, that what she was asking me to do did not feel right for me. And that I really felt like I needed to do, all this business stuff a different way. And she told me not to trust that intuition, that she was right and she knew what I needed to do. And that if I didn't do what she told me to do, then I would be the best intuitive coach that no one had ever heard of. And I was like,
there's
oh my
some
gosh.
fear, right? Fear motivation.
I'm like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And so I talked to my mother-in-law, who is a self-made millionaire. I'm like, okay, so how do I get out of this? Really, how do I get out of it? And she's like, okay, so this is what you do. And I got out of it. I went into the conversation scared as hell, but I had a good idea of what I needed and what I really wanted. My expectations were set. And I walked away with exactly what I thought she would say, because I had meditated before time, and I had connected to the spirit and all of my posse. And I was like, okay, guys, what's really coming down the pipe? And they explained kind of where she was with things and why she was coming at this from this particular perspective. And I was like, okay, that makes me understand it more. And what came out, like after we broke our contract and we finished that, about 3 months later, she ended up coming out and telling everybody everything that I had thought was going on, that she had been going through a huge transition herself. She had gone through a breakup and was finding herself again and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay. So it was a huge turning point for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, my intuition, my connection to spirit, and then also knowing the human design has really been right on and totally true. So it's been a huge, just perspective for me to actually sit there and see everything going on.
Wow. So it sounds like your personal transformation was in about learning to trust your intuition and to recognize how influenced you were by an external expert. And Cristy, I just want to focus on this for just a minute, because I think this is relevant to so many of our listeners. we all have been there. In fact, most of us are there a lot, a lot of the time, or all the
Mhm.
time. Like we might not even realize it. It was only a few years ago on my journey that I started recognizing that every time I had a question or problem, I'd want to go to Google, or I'd want to go to an expert, or I'd want to go hire a doctor or whatever. And then I started realizing, as I was digging into human design and practicing what I call the new paradigm principles, I was realizing, wait a second, if the whole purpose of all of this is that I have the answers within, I mean, first of all, what does that even mean? At that point, I was like, kind of, it sounded like new agey lingo to me, like, no, the answer within, we do,
Yeah.
like, what is that, right? But it took me a few years to really understand, and now I'm really living into it as you are, in what I understand that to mean, and I'd love for you to give more color on this in a minute. But for me, it means listening to my body, listening to my intuition, recognizing that I have a lot of wisdom inside me, and it's not coming from a place of ego. I'm not trying to say that I know all about, the medical field and all that, but nobody else can tell me what's correct for me. Only I can. And I explain to my clients that's the truth too. So even you and I, as human design coaches of some sort, however we, title it, we're using human design as a tool to help guide other people in a process, or to help them to transform in some way. And so when we do, I mean, the part of the big aha for me has been, first of all, learning to recognize my own source light and going in within to find answers first, instead of, going outside, Googling and, asking my friends. For me, that was a big part of my early learning. But the other part is also trusting that inner guidance system that is inside. And that only can happen. And I'm not saying I'm there yet. It's a journey for me anyway, but it started with, when I had the health crisis and all those big things in my life, and I wanted to check out, I didn't. Thankfully, I had a coach that I was working with who encouraged me and said, you know what, it's going to get better. And he really encouraged me to listen to my body. And that was the big key. And I'm giving you something here that's worth thousands and thousands of dollars if you ever have had chronic pain or massive headaches like I did, which was my debilitating migraines for 18 years. And I thought I tried everything, but I was looking for the answers outside myself, right? And I tried health and diet and fitness. Well, not really fitness, but supplements. And I did try drugs for a while. I tried all these different things outside myself. And what I realized finally, when I was working with this coach who was really pushing me to get into my body, it was through regular strength training, yoga, and meditation, that I had the big aha, which was when I listened to my body, oh my gosh, all of a sudden this big blinking light was like there, like, oh, the headaches all those years, they were just my body's way of trying to get my attention and tell me that something was off. And yeah, something was off. I was married to somebody who was living a lie, and I was living a lie. I was trying to live someone else's life, and I didn't even realize it. No wonder I was so miserable. So all that to say, I hear you, and listening to, and I appreciate you sharing your story of personal transformation, which was about learning to tune into your intuition and then to trust it. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that process, because I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges I still have, and I know my clients are challenged with it too sometimes. Learning to trust themselves and trust their intuition. What can you say about how to do that?
Okay, so yeah, so the first thing, that's one reason why I developed the practical intuition quiz that feeds into the tiny course that I just finished, as intuition in your human design, is because I feel like people first need to be able to recognize it, right? They need to know how it comes into them, in order to go, oh, this is an intuitive perspective. This is not just someone telling me that this is what needs to be going. Like we were talking earlier about, animals crossing our paths and what they mean and their significance and things like that. So being able to recognize it is huge, because a lot of the times we automatically discount the information that's coming into us because we are naturally wired to be intuitive. And that's one reason why I love human design, is that it actually would show up in your chart. There is proof in your chart, in your human design chart, that you are intuitive. And that's one reason why I like the tiny course, is that it actually shows you in your chart where you are intuitive. So you can actually practice the journaling exercises and the activities to start doing it on purpose, so that you know what to notice. So you can, because once you start paying attention and seeing it, then you start going, oh, I actually am intuitive in that way. And then you have more confidence and trusting how things come in, because
Mm.
it's a practice. It's an everyday practice.
And
Um,
it takes time. And I'm sorry to jump in, to interrupt you
right.
for just, I'm realizing you and I are both manifesting generators, and we're just like jumping ahead and like, oh, let's just get into this, right? Let's just go, which is
Yeah.
great. But let's back up. This is what we do as manifesting generators, right? We jump ahead and then we got to back up and retrace our steps. So before we get to your tiny course, which is, we do want to talk about that, but
Right.
let's talk a little bit first about, I want you to talk about who you help, who you don't, who you can't help, and then tell us a little bit about what does, and I'll ask you more questions, but kind of, if you're listening to this, like, here's where we're going. Who can you help? Who can't you help? Like, who is this for? And then what are the results that people can expect when they do the tiny course and or when they work with you to learn about their intuition? So let's talk about all of that and go.
Okay, so what was the first question?
Right. Yeah, tell us a little bit about, and I should put it on the slide here, but tell us a little bit about who you can help and why, or who you can
Okay.
help and who is this for and who is it not for. Let's just talk about the tiny course.
Okay.
We'll get into that in just a minute.
Okay. So okay, so I help. Okay, typically my clients are ambitious entrepreneurs who have realized that what's going on is not working anymore. They are doing a lot of things that are not serving them, sucking time, it's draining them. They feel like they're totally looking for answers outside of themselves, right? A lot of them have had a huge, significant life transition. I've had clients who have heart attacks. I've had clients who have all their staff walk out. And it's just huge signs that they're out of alignment with how they're running their business, how they're running their life. And they want to trust themselves more. They want to go inside for answers. And like you said, they want to learn how to rely on themselves and their connection to spirit, really reinforce that connection to spirit so they can translate what's coming in. Because a lot of the times we look for outside answers because what's coming in doesn't make sense. Or for some reason, there's someone outside of us saying, you don't know what you're talking about. I do. You need to listen to me instead of yourself. And so it's really that training of, people who are open-minded and ready to learn more about themselves and how they work. And they want to put that into more of an intuitive life, more intuitive business practice. They want to simplify. They want to streamline. They really want to make a lot of more income and impact without all the pain in the ass effort. Because not everything's for everybody, right? Even though we try to do everything, and believe me, I feel like I have tried everything.
Well, you have as a 3-line, but remember, there's no mistakes, right?
No, there's just no, this does not work for me. So a lot of experience there.
No mistake, only experiences. I just want to highlight that because that was a really big key in my own development. I kept having to remind myself there's no mistakes here, just different experiences.
That's just an experience that you know not to do next time, right?
Yes.
Well, and it's funny because I saw a t-shirt the other day that said, the one thing I'll say to myself at the very end was, oops, shouldn't have done that. Don't do that again. And that's like a typical 3-line. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah. So it's really amazing how that human design wakes us up and allows us to go, oh, I get that now. Now I understand why all these things were coming into me, and it didn't work for me. Why didn't they work for me? Because you're not broken. You're just unique, and you just need to figure out those specific little pieces that work great for you and ditch the rest of that crap. So, and that's really the process, right? So, my clients are interested in human design, interested in intuitive development, and they're usually business owners or entrepreneurs who want to be entrepreneurs. And they are ready to work on themselves to really grow their business. And that's what we do. And yeah, so this is not for people who think, that intuition doesn't exist, or think they know everything about intuition already. Knock yourselves out. And I mean, because it's always a learning process. I mean, I'm an old soul, so I feel like I've been around the block a couple times. So there's that. But, you know, regardless of your belief system, if you are not open to new experiences and doing things a different way, then this is not for you.
I
'Cause
was just going to ask you, yeah, who
yeah,
isn't this for? And that's it.
yeah,
That you have to be open. You have to be open to the woo, right? In order
yeah,
for this to even work for you. Because
yeah.
if you don't believe that you have, that there's such a thing as an intuitive guidance system, whatever you call it. I mean, you might call it the Holy Spirit. You might call it, you might use a pendulum. You might use your body. There's lots of ways. But if you don't believe that there is such a thing as intuitive guidance, then this really
You're
isn't
not,
for
yeah,
you, right?
no, this isn't, yeah, this is not going to work. And so don't, you know, don't bother. Uh, so yeah, so this is for those who are open-minded and ready to move forward and know they are intuitive. You might not be able to really see it or access it or trust necessarily that it's there. You keep repeating the same mistakes over and over. But if you're ready to start that journey of integrating intuition and human design into your business, especially, I do have slides that connect with that in doing business intuitively. So I recommend it.
Excellent. Well, I didn't mean to stop you. I was gonna try to find the URL that you sent me that we could send people to the tiny, the tiny course. So I was trying to multitask and you caught me. Okay, so we talked about your story. We talked about how you got here and why, which was your own experience with intuition, listening to someone outside yourself and how that cost you money and time and frustration and pain, basically. But it gave you enough. Oh, perfect. Thank you. We'll put yeah, she put the link in the chat and I'll share it. If you're watching this later on the replay, I'll put it in the comments, but you can find out more about the tiny course that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But yeah, just to give a recap, if you're just now joining us, so we talked about Cristy's story, how she found human design, or how she found her intuition, really. And that was kind of overlapped with as you were learning about human design and learning to trust yourself. And I always say the secret to enlightenment: know yourself, love yourself, and practice self-care. And for all my clients, I want my intention. I don't want, because if we come from a frequency of want, that means we don't have, right? So I'm always thinking I want to be a frequency match to that which I want to create. These are the keys I'm slipping in there, you know, keys to manifesting, because that's one of my specialties. But what I want to say is that when we know who we are, we love who we are, and we practice self-care, and self-care is key here to listening to your intuition. Because if I am frazzled and stressed out, and like, you know, maybe right now I feel like it for a few moments, like where I'm just multitasking, I got a lot of stuff going on, I am not able to listen. I'm not able to tune in very well. I'll say very well, because maybe I can. I can multitask, but not very well. Not the same way as when I'm, you know, it's at night. Like, okay, I've shut down the computer. I put my phone away. Now I can, you know, I can focus on my breathing. I can listen to my body. I can tune in. You know, whatever it is for you. You know, this is what helps me. And so now I can tune in. But the point is self-care. I'm bringing it back to self-care because I think that's really, really important. If we're not practicing self-care, then we're not really fully able to listen, because in human design, as you know, a lot of our in the moment knowing comes through our spleen, and those splenic pulses are very immediate. And if you're not paying attention, you're not going to get them, and then they're not going to come again. They're only going to come once. So it's
Yes.
almost like you have to be paying attention, and it means living in conscious awareness. That's been another secret that I've found, and we could talk a lot more about that. And I'm not trying to dilute here. There's a lot of things we could go further on. I want to focus back on your tiny course. So we've talked
Okay.
about who you can help and how you can help, helping them learn their human design, especially focused around how to tap into their intuition. And that was one of the reasons why we connected initially. So you have a tiny course. We're going to offer it. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your clients' results and what kinds of results that people can expect from, you know, either the course or working with you. I mean, what does it look like?
Well, let's see. Gosh, we go over in the landing page, it goes over everything. But this tiny course is really for people who want to start really validating and confirming what they know to be true about themselves already, and go, oh my gosh, that is how that shows up for me. So a lot of that is bridging the gap, right? Of going, oh, I'm not crazy. This actually is true for me. And I love the tiny course. It's really designed to help you recognize, trust, and really access your intuition on purpose. So this is something that it's not just comes in whenever it wants to, it's actually a current that comes in all the time. And you paying attention again is what's really going to help you to tune into that and see it more often. And as you start to notice more, you'll see more and you'll start to feel more. And yes, definitely being in your body. Self-care allows you to be in yourself, in that core self. And being anchored in your body allows your body to respond, because especially all of our sacral beings, generators and manifesting generators, that sacral response is huge with that yes, no. Being emotionally defined, I also have to tune into how things feel for me. And when you're manifesting, you really need to be on board emotionally for everything that you're doing. That's the undercurrent of everything you're manifesting. So really paying attention to that intuition and how it comes in is huge. And that's the tiny course. It's the, I don't want to say the beginner model, but we go over the 4 clairs. We go over visual intuition, emotional intuition. We go over like a physical intuition, as well as a knowing and how that comes in. And then I also have a whole section on extra intuitions, is what I call them, where you have in your chart also different gates that promote like clairsentience, but also like clear smelling, where you can smell things. Like I smell a rat, that's gate 44. And you can actually smell when things are off. And when you're eating food and stuff, you have to smell, your food before you eat it. Just a little side thing. It's like everybody in my family always asks me to smell like the milk and the leftovers and everything to make sure they're good, because I have that really heightened, keen smell of sense.
Cristy,
So
I hate to interrupt you, but did you
yeah.
ever see that show on Saturday Night Live? Like, this was back in the 90s, and it was a skit specifically about that. And it makes me wonder if someone realized that they probably didn't put it in human design terms. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yes, I've seen it. Someone sent it to me like a week ago. That's odd that you would mention that. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is totally a gate 44 thing.
I wish I had it right now and I could just cue it up and show it, but it's so funny. Like when I was a kid, I didn't grow up with TV, didn't watch movies much, but as I was a teenager, we finally got to watch a little bit of TV, and one of the things that was a real special treat was watching Saturday Night Live. And at the time, I think it was when it was still good. I don't know. It seemed more funny to me then than it does now.
Yeah.
But there was a funny skit that became a family joke, which was this family, and they're someone goes to the fridge and they're like, oh, this is awful. And then they go and shove it in front of someone else, and they're like, oh, yuck, and they shove it in front of the nose of someone else, and they all have to do that. And it's like, why do we need to why can't we learn from each other? Like, why do we all have to have our own experience? That was what I got then. But now, I can see how that was probably somebody who recognized that somebody has gate 44, or this would be the human design perspective on it, right?
Right, exactly. It's funny to go through it. Yeah, because I mean, like yeah, I mean, because then what's thing that's in the tiny course is that in the chart, I mean, like gate 57, we were talking about that earlier. I mean, I see that I have the whole 5734 channel, which connects the spleen to sacral. And so it's a magnifier channel. So a lot of the times 57 is the highest intuitive gate, because it's connected directly to splenic, which is in the moment, right? Awareness. And it is a flash. It goes in, it goes out, and that's it. So yeah, if you're not paying attention, woo, it's like, woo, I saw that fly by. I don't remember what that was, but it probably was something I should have paid attention to. And I noticed that those little subtle hints, those are the things you need to be paying attention to, because that's what puts things in the right place at the right time and really puts you in alignment time-wise, when timing is concerned. Because there's certain things where it's like, oh, maybe we should put that away instead of leaving it out, and then come back and go, yeah, so with everything that happened, it would have been better for me to do this than to not. And so that's one reason why I just love intuition, and proving it's in your human design is like proof, that, oh, so those little hits, the little quiet voices that pop in and say, hey, do this. It's not kidding. There's a reason why it's coming in.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I just love it.
So I think you've covered some of the results that people can expect. I mean, certainly better decisions, quicker
Mhm.
decision making when you learn to tune into your inner guidance system. There's no doubt about that. Let's quantify it. I mean, do you have any examples maybe from clients or in your own life where you could actually put a dollar amount to any of the results that you've experienced or that your clients have experienced with using their intuition?
Oh, okay. Yes, I can several. Well, right off the top, I have an interior design client, past client. I work with my clients typically from usually at least a year and a half when we're working on their business and realigning it because it takes a while to untrain yourself and decondition. But she's an interior designer and she was having the hardest time getting income to come in consistently. And what she ultimately wanted was like basically like a 3-month waiting list. And I was like, okay. So when we were working with her alignment and her processes and intuitively knowing in the moment, yes, this is for me, no, this isn't for me, she would come back to me again and again and say, okay, so you know how we talked about last week, how you weren't supposed to, you can tell there's little red flags that pop up when you're talking to a potential client. And you're like, yeah, but I really need the money, so I'm going to take it anyway. And then you take it, and then you want to fire the client because they're such a pain in the ass. So she had several instances where she was like paying people, and covering product, furniture and stuff just to get people to finish the contract so she didn't have to work with them anymore. And that was super expensive for her. She spent
Hmm.
like 11 grand on one project because she just wanted to wrap it up and get it done because it was so wrong for her. And then we got to the point where she was getting projects for 30, 45, 60 grand. And they would take 3 to 5 months. And she had a waiting list of over 6 months. And they were perfectly happy to wait for her to, get the time. And she's grown to like, she has a staff, I think, of 5 now. And I talk to her all the time. So it's interesting to see the difference between listening and not listening and how it really can seriously cost you.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that it's expensive to not be listening to your inner guidance system, right?
It is. And I mean, I had a girlfriend of mine, client of mine the other day, she wrote me and she's like, okay, so I'm up for this journaling gig. I'm debating on whether I really want to do it or not. Where she would be a writer for a magazine or a different company. And she would be freelance. She said it kind of feels a little off, but I'm not too sure why. She's like, but I really feel like, the money would be great. And they tell me that they'll let me do this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay. She's like, but something feels off. And I'm like, okay, we'll sit with it. She's emotionally defined. And see kind of what to respond and not initiate. Because, especially anything manifesting generators, we all want to, manifestors, we want to, let's get it started. Or if you have a lot of initiation in your chart, you like to start things. And come to find out that the guy she was talking to was actually on his way out and he was trying to fill the position as one of his contingencies to get out of the company. And if she committed, then she would have been actually doing like 3 different jobs, not just this one job. And so that's why she sat with it and she ended up saying, no to it. And then talking to the lady who followed up with her, she asked her all these questions and she was really honest with her. And she was like, oh my gosh, a bullet dodged there, trusting that feeling that something wasn't quite right. Um, and then allowing it to sit and use that human design strategy in order to kind of let it play out.
Wow, that's a great story. Yeah, and I think I mean, it's obvious that when you listen to your inner guidance system, when you listen to your intuition, your life is going to be better. You're going to make better decisions. Your quality of life is going to go up. Your relationships are going to be better because you're not going to waste time. I mean, ideally, it's always a choice, right? It's always a choice.
Always,
We live
always.
in, we choose to be empowered and see everything as an opportunity, but it means that when we are listening, we are going to be better off. And it reminds me of a quick story that I want to share. When I was laid off the first time, I remember going into the office, and if anyone listening has ever been laid off, you'll probably relate to this. It seemed odd, like all of a sudden there was this sudden meeting that I was called to, and I'm going into a room and I'm like looking around, and it just looks fishy. Something is fishy. And as soon as the door closed, there's the message like, you're not needed anymore, or whatever it was. I don't even remember the words. But in that split second, when I realized what was happening, I heard on my splenic knowing, now I know what that was in gate 57. I heard this message, and I say heard, clairaudient. I feel that this was a clairaudient message. This is going to be the best thing that ever happened to you. And it was so surprising when I heard it. And I'm like, what? Wait, what?
Mhm.
Like all this confusion on the external, in my external world, with like the strangeness of the types of people and the way they were dressed and the way that all this meeting just happened was in my, so if I'm looking externally, I'm like freaked out. If I'm looking internally, I get this message, this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to you. Just calm, stay calm. And I chose in that moment to listen to my internal guidance system. And I was like, okay. So I was in what now I understand as a new paradigm principle. I was in acceptance and I was in surrender. I was just like, okay, I guess there's a shift. And in fact, what's funny is I was actually at Warner Brothers at the time, and I worked on this team with some really beautiful, talented, smart women. And it felt like the posse, like almost like the Charlie's Angels, it's kind of like that was kind of the joke with my boss and her, her team, and I was part of this team, and I felt important being part of this high profile team, but it wasn't really an alignment for me. And just the day before, I had told my husband at the time, I just don't feel like I have enough or the right clothes. I don't feel like I fit in here. And that night I was planning, I'd already made a decision. I was going to spend a big chunk of money and just buy a whole new wardrobe in order to fit in and to feel that I was, like that to look the part. I felt like I needed to look the part. And I'm so grateful that that the timing of that happened, that the message I got was just, this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to you. And then that I was saved from having to waste all that money on clothes I didn't want and didn't really want to wear anyway. But all of that to say, when we try to put a number on the benefits of listening to our intuition, it can be hard, but I know that it's significant, and there's no better way to live now. And I really practice listening to my intuition now. So thank you for helping us to get to this place, Cristy, where we're aware of our intuition. You shared your story. We've talked about so many things that I feel are going to resonate with our audience. By the way, my audience is women in midlife transition who are probably in some kind of, they're creating something different in their lives, whether it's a new relationship or getting out of an old relationship, whether it's a job or career transition, or it's a health crisis. These are the kind of people that are going to be listening to this podcast, that are going to be drawn in and attracted to the frequency that we're broadcasting right now, not just in the words, but in the energy that we're broadcasting. And I feel that that is what we're all meant to do, is we're meant to raise the vibration of those around us, if that's what we're called to do, and that we do that not just through our words, but through the frequency that we broadcast. And human design helped me understand, always helps me understand what the energy of that is. When I look at my chart and I see the things that are colored in, that's the things I'm broadcasting, and the things that are open or white are the things I'm here to learn about through relationships. So all that to say, intuition, wow, it's huge. How do I get more? How do I know? Here's an answer. And if this resonates with you, I want you to check out the tiny course that Cristy's prepared. She let me preview it. I didn't get all the way through it, to be honest. I just have a lot of stuff going on this week. But I'll tell you this, I got far enough along to say it's very simple, that anyone could use, anyone could benefit from it. And you absolutely will get proof by going through this process of what types of intuition are you're meant to master in this life, and what types of intuition are the types that you're going to learn about probably through relationships, because you're going to get them in other ways. So that is something that I want you to check out. If it resonates, you got the bit.ly URL there, https://bit.ly/Grace G Tribe. If you're listening, if you're not able to see the screen right now and you're listening to the replay, that's let me say it one more time. It's https://bit.ly/Grace G Tribe. Okay, that might have been useless, but I'm trying to think of all the possible ways that somebody might be listening to this and how we can help them. So, Cristy, thank you for that. We've been talking to Cristy Nix, intuitive business coach and human design specialist. Cristy, you're in Austin. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to connect with you in the first place. We're going to have a Human Design Tribe meetup in person and in Aura Experiment again. We had one last month. It was amazing. We had 10 people, and they were all like, "Wow, really feeling in their body what the aura of being in another others, and being conscious of their type of aura, how that felt in their body." Some really interesting stories with one manifester and one projector, and the rest were generators and manifesting generators, mostly 5-1s, because that's who I attract more than anything else. It seems I'm a 2-5 manifesting generator. Anyway, all that to say, if you're interested in meeting Cristy in person, I have talked to her about joining us on a meetup coming up in the next month or so. If you're on Facebook, go to humandesigntribe.net. Within Facebook, that's the name of my Facebook group, Human Design Tribe. And we've got more than 700 people now. We're going to be more active there. My intention this year is to start making daily videos and really positively impact 5 million people by 2025 through the Know Yourself Revolution. That's my thing. That's my vision. By listening to this, by watching this video, if you're watching the replay, by working with Cristy, by working with any of the other human design specialists that you're going to hear about on future podcasts, I believe that you are part of this Know Yourself Revolution. So I see us all as an extended team, an extended tribe. There's no competition in my world because there's enough for everyone. And we live in a world, and I choose to create a world where the frequency that I emanate is going to be attractive to some person, and the frequency that Cristy emanates is going to be attractive to someone else. And I believe in fractals, and I believe that there's some people that are in Cristy's fractal, and there's some people that are in my fractal, and there might be some overlap, but for the most part, I think that we're meant to work with different people. And so that's how I can feel so comfortable building a platform, which has always been my intention with this Facebook group, to really create a platform for others like Cristy to share their stories, share their offerings, and to help positively impact 5 million people by 2025. So with that, I want to, if you need more about me, if you're just tuning in, askgrace.info. I choose to get my website better. But anyway, right now, there's a little bit more about me and what I offer. Really, what I want to offer is the group coaching program. So that's what I'm working on in the background. That way, it can be a lower cost option that's more affordable for everyone, and really you can learn about your design and apply it to your life. Right now, I do a private coaching series. It's a 10-week program for women, where we look at your design, we apply it to your life purpose, your relationships, your business, manifesting, and then how to stay in alignment. And if that resonates with you, you just schedule a time for a quick call. We can talk about it, askgrace.info. But really, my intention is to build up my Facebook group so that we can do more Facebook Lives, so that we can do some challenges, so we can really together, Cristy, you and I, and all the other human design folks that are listening in, we can together positively impact at least 5 million people by 2025. And I think that's a low estimate. But if we can do that through leading by example and living our own design, we are broadcasting that frequency, which is helping other people get to a higher frequency, which brings better health, more wealth, and more well-being for all of us. So I'm excited about being part of that. We have time for a few questions right now. If you have a question and you're on the chat, please put your question in the chat. And I see there might be one question. We have a 3-5 manifester here, just joined the Facebook group. Awesome, Moniz, thank you. And I know we've got a bunch of other people on this call that are of all types. We've got manifestors, manifesting generators, projectors. I don't know if we have a reflector today. They're only 1%. My sister Rama is a reflector, so I'm very familiar. Gerta is a 6-3 manifestor. Wow, that's very rare. Gerta being a 6-3. About 2.4% of the population, I think. Just as for me at 2.5, we're equally rare. The point is, we are all perfectly designed to be and do what we're here to be and do. And that's the good news. And that's what any human design specialist that you reach out to is going to help you learn about for yourself. So if human design resonates with you, if this is the first time you're listening to it, wait for something to respond to. Set your intention that you want to explore this further, and whether it's something in the Facebook group, maybe it's on Cristy's website, maybe it's through this tiny course. Let me go back again to the URL for the tiny course. I want you to follow your own intuition on how to move yourself along in the journey that you're here for, because if you get nothing else out of this, I want you to remember you are perfectly designed to be and do exactly what you're here to be and do. There's nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing. I want to be crystal clear about that. That was my biggest aha from human design. And if I could share that with everyone in the world and they could really feel it and know it by potentially learning their human design or some other way, I think, the world would be different. So that's all I got, Cristy. Any final words from you?
No, I think you about covered it. I'm just hoping that everybody really starts to really pay attention and trust and know that you have it all inside of you. You have the whole chart inside of you, and that this is just the beginning. Learning your intuition and how your human design, works and impacts you every day is, you being able to really step into and embody who you really are designed to be. So yeah, this is just the beginning, and I hope to see you guys on the flip side.
Absolutely. Check out the tiny course if it resonates with you. It's awesome. You're going to learn about your intuition. It's a great way to jump into human design, whether you're new, whether you're not. I mean, I've been learning about human design for years now. And it was when I saw Cristy's tiny course, I'm like, oh, I really, really want to master this. This is awesome. So really good stuff. And once you take the course, you will have a foundation upon which to build for recognizing the types of intuition that you have. So, oh, awesome. Claudia is also in Austin, a 3-5 generator. Yay. So lots of 5 lines. I know that I attract 5 lines because we're here everybody has a special role, but we're here as visionary leaders. That's our particular brand of leadership. And because we're 5 lines, we tend to be outside the box. And so we tend to be in the periphery, seeing the stuff that's ahead that other people haven't necessarily caught up with yet. So whatever type you are, whatever your profile, you are perfect the way you are. And I encourage you to find somebody attract somebody that resonates with you to learn more about yourself. Because if you know who you are and you love who you are and you practice self-care, that is going to raise your frequency and that is going to affect everyone around you. And again, together we can positively impact 5 million people by 2025. We're all part of the Know Yourself revolution. If you're within the sound of my voice, you're part of this movement, and I thank you for being here. I thank you for being part of it. Thank you for your time today, Cristy. I look forward to future conversations and a meetup in Austin, a Human Design Tribe meetup. So go to the Facebook group if you haven't and join us, and you'll see an event there, and we'll plan it sometime in the next month.
That's good.
Yay. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks again. Bye.